Hi friends, welcome back to my YouTube channel, and this marks the very first video in a new series that I'm calling Weird Girl Childhood. Today we're going to be talking about my personal favorite collection, and I have several collections, but this one has a very special place in my heart, and that is Littlest Pet Shops. This was my bread and butter as a child. However, while I always had them growing up, it didn't really become something that I was obsessed with until I was a little older, so it was several generations in before I started falling in love with them, and that was because of their YouTube presence. If you don't know, in the early 2000s, there was this huge boom on YouTube where people were starting to make like episodic television shows with their toys, and that created its own little sector of the internet that was called LPSTube. I found LPSTube probably in second grade, fell in love with it, and I wanted to be a part of it so badly that I pulled out all of my Littlest Pet Shops that I had not played with in several years and started to actually grow an appreciation for them, and that's when I started collecting. A lot of the pets that I have now were not even stuff that my parents had bought for me as a kid. It was stuff that I collected over time. I was traversing eBay way before I should have been traversing eBay. And I continue to collect to this day because if you don't know, in recent years Hasbro has gone back to the old molds of pets and started re-releasing Littlest Pet Shops. So I thought that this would be a really cool topic to talk about for our first video. I'm going to give you guys a brief history lesson for anybody who is not familiar with the brand, and I'm going to have all of my references in the description. So Littlest Pet Shops in its earliest form was released in 1992 by a company called Kinnard Toys. Now this was before Hasbro got involved, and the Littlest Pet Shops, as I will show on the screen, looked very different from how they look today. And it wasn't until 2004 when Hasbro got involved with the company that the Littlest Pet Shops finally started to take their iconic mold. Then from 2005 to 2007 is when we finally got Generation 2 in its first iteration, where the pets had more of a realistic quality to them. Then we moved into the second iteration of Gen 2 when pets started having more designs on them. And then we moved into the third iteration where stickers started becoming more popular. And this was our introduction to some of the pets having sticker eyes instead of painted eyes. Gen 3 started in 2012, and this is the infamous era where the Littlest Pet Shop TV show came out. So there was a lot of branding being pushed towards the TV show and the characters in that show. As this era progressed, we slowly phased into the Dark Ages, which is around the time where pets stopped looking like their original selves and started looking like a completely different brand in a way. They removed their magnets, which if you don't know, a lot of the original pets came with magnets on their paws that you could use to interact with different pieces of their playsets. The magnets were gone, and the bobbleheads were also gone. You could not move the heads on the pieces unless you pushed really, really hard on them, and they were also very bright colors and just a very different design. And a lot of people were not happy with this, myself included. I was there for this big change, and I was not happy as somebody who had fallen in love with the older style and had just started their collection. It was not a good time because these pets were not what we had fallen in love with. I remember there being this huge push on YouTube for people to call Hasbro and complain, and there was like little kids calling and being like, we want the old generation back. At the time, it felt like World War III for me. I mean, third grade me was not happy. But fast forward a little bit, the bobbleheads returned, but now the pets had holes in them instead of magnets, and you could press little, I don't even know what to call them, little decorative pieces into the holes on their body to accessorize them, and a lot of the play sets at this time also had the holes in them and the pegged pieces. I didn't love this either, and nobody was really happy, even though there was a little bit more, I guess, excitement that the bobbleheads were back, but it just wasn't going well. There was a long period of time where Littlest Pet Shop just kind of left the market. LPSTube kind of died out over time, and there just wasn't really much that I was hearing about it anymore. And then in the past few years, with the new generation, we saw Hasbro start to release pets that were a lot more like their original form. They had the bobbleheads. I actually don't know if any of them have magnets, but they were a combination of the new style but with old flair. So they had more colorful designs. A lot of them have that kind of G2 intricate detailing on them, and they look very new and fresh, but they still have that old feel to them. And that's where I started my collection again, and that's what has brought me to making this video for you today. I wanted to talk a little bit about the actual YouTube culture. You can hear my dog in the background. She's coming. Hello! Hello, dear! I remember finding LPSTube through watching similar content where people were taking their toys and making TV shows out of it. I think I was in maybe like the doll space. I was big on Barbie and American Girl, so I'm sure that those were probably the spaces where I started. And then I found the Littlest Pet Shop videos because people were putting in effort to the Littlest Pet Shop videos that just was not matched by any other group of like toy. And it's hard to explain to somebody who has not seen it before because you genuinely just had to be there. Most people who were putting out content with their Littlest Pet Shops were doing it as if it was a real TV show. There was not a lot of, I guess, humor and play element to it, and some of them were intended to be more comedy pieces, but it was still very well thought out and structured like a comedy TV show. It was never like, oh, I'm just gonna play with my toys and film it. And a lot of the people who were creating content in this space were also not children. It was older people, it was teenagers, it was young adults. I'm assuming there were some older adults doing it as well. I can actually remember a few, but they weren't really doing the narrative content. They were more doing like unboxing content. So there was a space really for everybody, but what really brought it together was the narrative content. There were a lot of TV shows. There were also music videos that I very heavily remember. I'm going to try and find some that might still be up to put on the screen to show you, but these would be people moving their Littlest Pet Shops around handmade sets and filming videos where they would move the bobblehead as they're speaking, and it would look like an actual TV show with characters, and these were cut like TV shows. And I was fascinated by this as a young film-obsessed kid who wanted to work in that space, and I didn't even fully understand that that was what I wanted to do with my life yet. I knew what my interests were, but until I found this area of the internet where people were doing the thing with like no budget in their homes, that was where I really found that passion. And I think that's why I still have so much love for these little toys and collecting them, because this space really shaped me in a way. And I remember being in, I guess maybe second grade, and I thought, it's my turn. I started a YouTube channel and I started filming my episodes of a Littlest Pet Shop TV show, and it was not good, but for my age, it was really impressive, and I didn't know that at the time. I know that as a 22-year-old looking back at how much effort I was putting into these things. I made sets. I had begged for a camera for Christmas. I taught myself how to use an editing software in second and third grade. That's insane. And it wasn't ever something that felt like I was playing. It felt like I was creating something. I was doing it with the intention of entertaining people, and that taught me a lot about working behind the scenes on a project. And I remember some people at school had like found out that I was filming like TV shows with my pets, and they didn't know how to take it. I think they were trying to be judgmental, but like, how can you? Because is it not the norm? Yes, but at the same time, we are of the age demographic that would be playing with these toys. So it's like, really, is it something that you can judge? And I think about that a lot because that really bothered me as a kid. It bothered me that I had found such a passion for something, and a way into my dreams that was accessible for me at my age at the time, and that was seen as something that I needed to be embarrassed by. Because really, I wish that I had kept to it. Because if I had continued to make things like that and continued to learn and get better at it, then that could have been something that would be commendable at 22, looking back and seeing my progress. But I stopped myself short because I was so worried about what other people were thinking. And I had several different ideas. I was going to be like a full-on producer. I'm going to show you some of the stuff that I made in a minute and talk through some of it, but I wanted to mention that because being a young creative and having that space to learn was really important for my development and for a lot of people's development. And I remember specifically the big TV show on LPSTube was LPS Popular, and I rewatched it this past year because it was peak. I'm sorry, it is still peak. This was, years ago that this was coming out. YouTube was still taking shape at this point. It was before the renaissance of everybody getting onto YouTube. These videos were low quality. Nobody really knew what they were doing yet. The world was our oyster, and here was this TV show that talked about like relationships and drama and cheating and fighting. There was blood, fake blood. There was a character that went to the hospital. There was like family dynamics. There was talk about an eating disorder. There were all of these really heavy topics that, I guess for a lot of people who were watching this show, it was not something that they were seeing on television currently because they were younger. So this was kind of an introduction to a lot of topics, and I think that in some ways people would think that that's kind of problematic. I loved it, and I loved it because it didn't sugarcoat things. And being somebody who loved filmmaking and wanted to do filmmaking seriously and genuinely wanted to learn, having something at my fingertips just felt really inspiring. It felt like I had something that I could learn from it. And at the time, there were a lot of shows like this happening. It was a different era, and a lot of the people making these things, as I said, were very young. So there was not a whole lot of concept around what was okay representation-wise, but it didn't matter because these were dogs and cats. Plastic dogs and cats. And sometimes people would be moving their heads with their fingers, and sometimes they'd tape sticks to the back of their heads and move them around and talk with them, and girls would pitch their voices lower to play the guy characters. It did not take itself too seriously, and that was also a breath of fresh air because it made it seem so much more doable. Because I really enjoyed the stuff that I was watching. Some of it was actually really, really good. And when I talk about LPS Popular specifically, I still enjoy it at 22 years old. It's pretty good. And Sophie GTV has actually been posting pretty regularly about how she's going to finish the series in the next year, and I will be showing up to watch it. I also remember there used to be these things called Next Top Models, and if you've ever watched the show, America's Next Top Model, I had not, but I understood what the premise was. That was kind of what it was about, and people would do this in the LPS community, but they would also do it in like the Bratz doll community or the Barbie community, and it would be like a photography competition. Like you would get a theme every week. You had to enter, first of all. You had to enter to be a part of it. So you would be a contestant. And whoever was hosting the Next Top Model would be posting the videos like once a week about the contestants, and they would be voting people off once a week. So you would get a theme, and then you would have to take a photo of the toy with that theme in mind. Bear with me here. Submit it. And then either the person who hosted the Next Top Model would vote them off, or the people watching would vote. And then you would keep voting every week until there was one winner. And I did one of those once. And I made it pretty far before it got canceled, I think. And those were so fun. I loved those. I loved like feeling like a part of something. And again, it felt like its own like network, because there were all kinds of different shows being made, and at a certain point doesn't even feel like you're watching like toy content anymore. It feels like you're watching like a genuine TV channel, and that is so cool to me, and I wish that there was still stuff like that. And I know that there is, but it's just not the same because it was paving the way. So yeah, that's my spill about the YouTube era. But I want to talk about my collection a little bit specifically. So I have a lot of the playsets from the earlier days. They were gifted to me when I was building my collection, but a lot of them are disassembled, so I just didn't even bother to pull them out. But I did pull out 3 that are assembled, so we're going to go through them first, then we're going to go through the pets, and then I'm going to start showing you what I actually made for them. This is set number 1. Isn't she beautiful? She's very intact. There's literally pieces that I can see inside of it, so we're going to open it up and actually see what's in there. I loved this one. This was like the main set for a house for me because it was completely intact still. But this is basically what the inside looks like, and there's little, like, this is from Hobby Lobby, I think. These are some roses, and then I had 20 million of these. These were actually Littlest Pet Shop brand, but yeah. This was my like main set for a TV show. We're just gonna put that there. I also had a vet's office that I used quite a bit as well, but I didn't see it. This is a treehouse set. I really didn't use this a lot, but it's very cute. And this one I remember came in different colors. There's nothing in there, so I'm just not gonna show you that. This one was the big one. This was the one that everybody wanted, and I'm pretty sure most people, when filming their videos, used this. Yeah, the big one. She doesn't have a door. She never had a door. I got her secondhand. But yeah, this is like, yeah, I can't even show you this really on camera. She's huge. I remember this being a school set all the time. I think this was the set for Orange County Day. Like the original set. And a lot of times people would use these as like the exterior shot, and then they would move into an interior, which would just be like a blank wall and a blank table, and they've decorated it, and that would be the inside of wherever the characters are going. This is what y'all have been waiting for. These are my actual pet shops, and this is full. And this is not all of them either, because there's still a few that I can't fit in here. But I'm going to walk you through kind of what the differences in the generations look like. I came into this video with no real plan. I kind of just wanted to yap, so I hope you're enjoying this. Yeah. Cute. Okay, so obviously these were the main characters of all of my films because they're still dressed. They are still very much dressed. This was like a toe ring, I remember, that I didn't wear it. I just bought it somewhere and put it on her. Because, yeah, very cute. I remember specifically, this one was always the main character. This one was always her best friend, or sometimes the mean girl. This was best friend or sister. This was always the love interest, no matter what. Always the love interest. And this would always be the mean girl. And then this was the mom. And this was the dad. And they're not the same breed, but it's okay, because we were working with what we had. It's cinema. It's movie magic. So these types of pets were the ones that everybody wanted. These were the generations that were the best, and I'm gonna pull one out of here, this girl, because she looks good. So I remember getting this one from eBay, I think. This was the generation that everybody loved the most. You can see it's got the bobblehead to it. She also has a magnet on her foot. Some some of them, this one you can see I painted his nose back on because I was trying my best. And this is not even all of the ones that I had. This is just what I found. This one had his on his belly instead of a paw, and some of them look like that as well. This one I had also gotten from eBay, so he's got some stuff written on him, but he had one of the pink magnets, and there was a difference in generation from the pink magnets to the gray magnets. Then we moved into an era where we started experimenting a little bit, and I don't know what the order of these was, but there was an era of fairies, little fairy creatures. And there was an era where there would be blind bags. So the blind bag pets had their own branding on them. So like these characters came from the same blind bag set, which is why they both have little music notes. There was also the mommies and babies set. I'm trying to figure out where the baby is. This was what I had gotten from that set. So it would be a mom and a baby, and there was like 4 different kinds of pets that you could get, 4 different breeds. This one I think also came from a different blind bag set. This one was also a music note one. It's got a hat on. This one also maybe came from a set, a blind bag set. Oh, this one also has a music note. So obviously I really went ham in collecting that era. So then we enter the era where the heads didn't move, and then the following era where the heads did move, but it had the little holes in them, and I got several of those. So this one, head moves, there's a hole in its tail. Head moves. That might be, this is a little piece in its head I'm gonna take out. And yeah, you would do that to accessorize them. You can tell that there's a very big difference in the way that these look versus the way that these looked. There was also, around this time, the TV show was running, so we could get a lot of pets that looked like the TV show characters, and I never really watched the TV show, so I didn't have a connection to those characters, and it didn't really seem like a general consensus of people did. Oh, there was also things like this that have rolly stuff on the bottom so they would move. So this button helped them to move. This was the best era. Moving on from those, we're going to look at some of the others that I have in this box back here that don't fit, and then I'm going to look at some of the accessories as well. This is another one of the more mechanical ones. I don't actually remember what, I guess, I don't know. She moves somehow. This one I think spun in a circle. And there were also the McDonald's toys. This is a really old one, wow. There was a line of McDonald's toys. I have several of these in here, but to be honest with you, most of them are painted on because at the time I didn't understand that they had value and I just wanted to paint on them. So yeah, this one's not painted on. Very, very old. I had a lot of these actually growing up. And then there were these little cases, I think these might be for the McDonald's sets, these might not have been, that the pets would come in. At the very bottom of this box, we have some of the sets that we would be working with. I have like felt for grass and stuff. Yeah, call Jenna. I don't know who Jenna was. She must have been a character in something. This is my big box of props. So there was all kinds of things. These are just little pamphlets that have some of the pet shops that were available at the time with the sets that they came in. And then this came from a set where it was decorated, and this, there's things in the car. This is a little car. This came from a set. This one really cracks me up because this was something I made for, I guess, a college set, but I spelled college wrong on it. So And I had a lot of things that were like meant for like Barbie. These were like little nail polishes for other toys, but that I would use for my set. Like I said before, I had a bunch of these. This was for a Littlest Pet Shop, I remember. I had these little lights that I would use to clip onto things to light the set. This was a realistic little package. These were both LPS brand things. Just lots and lots and lots of things that I collected over time. I guess what I recall most fondly about this area of YouTube is that hypercriticism had not become a thing yet. So when I would engage with these TV shows, and I'm calling them TV shows because that's what they were, even though it's a weird concept to explain, they were TV shows. Never in the comments did I see somebody get angry at the creator for making a certain plot decision or having a certain character do something that the audience didn't like. You were always fully immersed in the story. If a character did something ridiculous, well, that's just what the character did and the story's continuing, and you genuinely just watched it for the entertainment and you just accepted it as it was. There was no witch hunt for any of the people creating this content, and a lot of that is because we didn't know to do that yet. And there was really no need to be hypercritical of people whose identities you didn't know, ages you didn't know, motivations in making this you didn't know. They could be a film major, they could be making it for their brother or sister, they could be doing it just genuinely for fun. Some of these were monetized, maybe, I think, at the time, at least in the latter half. So you most of the time had no idea who was making this content. Everybody was faceless because, I mean, it was an interesting thing to be doing with your day, but online you were safe. Online you were in a community of people who respected your craft, and I think that is so beautiful, and I wish that communities were still like that online, because unfortunately art, and especially indie art right now, is just getting picked apart for insane reasons, and a lot of people's first thought when they don't love something about a piece of art is to attack the creator. And it's upsetting because that kind of discourages people from making art, and it especially discourages people from trying something that is different from what most people are doing. If everything that we create is immediately hit with hypercriticism that we can never really get away from, then the discouragement is going to kill a lot of passion for creative work, especially in the film industry. And I think that's so unfortunate, because even when I was little, making silly little videos like this that meant the world to me and maybe not anything to other people, and the other kids around me didn't fully understand it, I still felt very supported by the community online. And what I'm especially grateful for is how this very short period of my life helped me to learn to consume and to formulate opinions about pieces of media. Like I said about LPS Popular specifically having really touchy topics, it wasn't something that I feel like I shouldn't have been seeing at that age. I feel like it was something that propelled me in my artistic vision because I was seeing something different. I wasn't watching kids shows. I was watching something that was completely appropriate for me to be taking in, but was easing me into things that were more mature. And looking back, I have been writing things that are more mature than my age demographic my whole life. So having spaces like that was really crucial for my development. It was also a way for me to bond with my family and with a few other kids that I went to school with who also were watching these videos, because there were other kids at school watching these videos and falling in love with this area of the internet. But I kind of realized through this experience that I wanted to be a filmmaker, and so coming to my family and being like, here's my ideas, here's what I want to do. I want to make this craft, I want to print off 20 million sets at your office, I want to go to Hobby Lobby and I want to look for miniature pots and pans because I need it for this scene, and can I borrow your laptop so I can edit this and make a YouTube channel? And my family is probably like, what is going on? And I know that to them they were probably like, you don't need a YouTube channel in second grade. And I probably didn't, but this area of the internet was the perfect space for me to have developed that passion in, because it was very appropriate for me to be there in that space. And just having my childhood whimsy and the big ideas and believing that everything is possible, and also having tangible things to work with and to actually try and create something with, was just really, I feel like, unique in that way. It instilled a work ethic into me for sure, because I wanted to learn and I always wanted to do better and I always wanted to do it right. And a lot of that took research and practice and the motivation to keep going and having to think logistically about things that at my age I wouldn't have been thinking about otherwise. And even to this day, being somebody who just got a bachelor's degree with a film concentration, working on projects with real actors on real sets is kind of similar to working with spaces where you have stagnant figures that you're moving around. The shots are very similar, the lighting is similar, the idea of set dressing and having to block a scene, especially when it comes to screenwriting and then turning screenwriting into an actual visible product. I find myself actually using a lot of the practices that I learned as a little kid in my work today, and that makes me really proud, because that reminds me that I was really onto something as a kid, and I was really putting my whole heart and soul into something that was going to take shape for me as an adult. Now I want to show some of the littlest pet shops that I have collected in the past year, because we're going to transition into talking about what the current state of this little fandom looks like. I have a lot in here. This is literally just a plastic bag. This one's one of my favorites. You can see that it has a lot of the original Pet's charm to it. It has the bobblehead. It does not have a magnet, but it does have a hole. It has a little peg, so it can interact with some pieces, I think. This is editing Macy popping in here because I forgot to talk about the main fives, and that collie is part of the main fives of the new generation. A main five is just the 5 pet molds that are the most popular for collectors, and that means they're the most expensive to find online now. So the main fives are Dachshunds, Great Danes, Cocker Spaniels, Shorthairs, and Collies. And a lot of that goes back to the LPSTube phases, because these were the 5 molds that people were using the most to play their main characters. And if you look at LPS Popular specifically, their main 5 main characters are the most expensive molds that you can find on the internet right now. And a lot of the pets now do come with accessories, and they've always come with accessories, but they're accessories that you can actually use without having to have like holes on the body or stickers, things like that. It's a lot of like food and things that actually don't interact with the pet at all. I'm trying to show you guys this little cheesecake. There's also new molds and new pets. So this is a new one. This is an axolotl, and it's one of my favorites. It's very cute. But this was something that did not exist when I was growing up. So that's fun as well, that it continues to expand in that way. I love this one as well. Some of the new pets also have features that are permanent on them. Like this one has a bow that is just a permanent part of the mold, and I don't mind that at all. This one has little dots on her ears. Super cute. And I'm continuing to collect, so if you want to keep up with my collection as it grows, follow me on my TikTok. I always do unboxing videos for you guys, because most of the pets nowadays come in blind boxes. You can get the codes that'll tell you what's going to be in them, and I try to sometimes, but generally if you want to start collecting, you can go in completely blind and have no idea what you're going to get, which is really fun. And obviously, looking at my previous collection, I loved doing the blind bags as a kid, so it's fun for me to continue opening them as an adult and have that reminiscent feeling to it. I think in continuing to collect and to keep up with this space, even though LPSTube is a shell of what it once was, it still is around though, but it looks very different. Now that we've moved into more of a short form content kind of internet instead of a long form, there are still people who are collecting and doing the unboxings and making little videos on TikTok that are very similar to the stuff that I was watching as a kid, lip sync kind of content, and that's always fun to find. It's no longer as big and episodic, but I think that's a good thing because the fact that it's a lot easier to make content like that now in a short form space, I think that's what has kept people doing it. And I love that it's still around because I hope that somebody who is going into 2nd or 3rd grade now is finding those spaces and feeling inspired by them in the way that I was. I think even at 22 years old, this is something that I still love interacting with because I think it's so important to maintain your childlike sense of wonder and your imagination. Because when I was a kid, I used to think that the idea of becoming an adult seemed very boring, and I did not want to be an adult at all because the adults didn't enjoy the things that I enjoyed as a kid. So now being an adult, it fulfills me to know that I have maintained certain parts of myself. I know several people who that I have met in college that make Lego stop motion films, and part of that's just because I got a film degree, but it is still a space that people are engaging with, just in different forms, and I love that. I actually voice acted in one of the Lego stop motions once. It was the worst performance of my life, I think, but at no point in the production process did I ever think, this is weird, because it's really not. It's really great to have something that propels you for most of your life. It's unique and it's art, and I think that's a really beautiful thing. And when I think about being a kid and feeling insecure and wondering if I'm doing something that I'm going to regret or that's going to be embarrassing because I'm too worried about what other kids think about my art, I really wish that I hadn't let that get to me, because I don't really as an adult anymore. No one really cares what your interests are, and I promise you, if anybody does, 99% of people do not. Just because the 1% is going to tell you that you should like something or that you shouldn't like something doesn't mean that you should listen to them, because they're the 1%. And really, if you lean into that interest, you being your full authentic self is going to propel you so much in life. It's going to make you happier. And in some cases like this, where it's an art form, it's going to make you more successful. It's going to teach you a lot. And it's really important to have a safe creative space. This was a completely unscripted, just impromptu chat that I wanted to have about something that interests me. I would love to talk more about this, maybe a bit more in depth and researched in the future if you guys are interested. But this was the first episode of what I'm hoping to be a long series about my childhood and about different things that I have grown up with and that I still engage with to this day, and my thoughts on them. So if you liked this video, make sure to check out the next one, and if there's anything that you would like to add to the conversation, drop that down in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one.